lyricist. She is that round-the-way girl that found her way at an early age who writes to let you find yours. But real talk, I never liked Sister Souljah. Straight up, she the type of female I like to cut in the face with my razor. Before I get heated just talking about her, though, let me make it clear who I am and where I stand. I am Ingrid B., the queen of the B-side, the queen of South Florida's live music and poetry scene. And you are now on the B-side, where we relish being ratchet to revolutionary. It is officially happy hour, and I know you have been politely clapping all day, but polite is not what Sister Souljah's writings are about. The old folks say that nothing opens after midnight but legs and liquor stores. But after midnight, minds are opened. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment of silence. And now let's take a moment of noise for Sister Souljah coming to the stage.
As per Sister Souljah. So right now, go ahead and take your cameras out. Get your pictures. Let's have our moments. Okay. You playing out her by herself? Got it? You can record a little something, and then that's it. And I'm gonna come around and find you if I see you recording the whole thing. All right? So one more time, like you know you're on the B side. Please put your hands together for Sister Souljah.
Peace and greetings. I say peace all the time because peace is the objective. A lot of times the people who love peace the most are packaged as the people who want war the most. And why the people who want war the most and wage war the most package themselves as the peacemakers. So I start off with peace because wherever Sister Souljah is, peace is the objective. Of course, people don't want peace just for peace's sake. People also want justice. So, no justice, no peace. I would like to start off by reading the poem that I wrote that opens a moment of silence, Midnight 3. The poem itself does not exactly relate to the story. I just woke up one morning and wrote it straight from the beginning to the end on a napkin. And then I looked at it and I said, Souljah, what does this have to do with the story, the novel? And then I answered myself, I don't know. And then another voice said, but this is what you're going to put in the beginning of the book. So I'm going to read it. A moment of silence. Something is in the water. Something is in the food. Something is in the atmosphere. Something changed the mood. Someone stole the feeling. Someone flipped the beat. There's meanness in the cold air and anger in the heat. Now the souls are empty, the strength gone from our stance. Now most hearts are vacant and feet no longer dance. Knees won't bend for prayers. I can't breathe the air. No one even cares or remembers what was there. Something is now nothing, and ugly is extra bold. Beauty has been stripped away, and only lies are told. We need more than a moment of silence, a year to just reflect, a time to become sincerely humble, a truth worthy to live, believe, and protect. Thank you. This, by far, is the most stressful novel that I've written. And I mean stressful for the author. I think when you write books, you have to put yourself in the shoes, in the mind, in the heart, in the soul of the characters, not only the main character, but each character. And in this case, I had to put myself in the shoes of Midnight, who is usually a cool and calm and collected and intelligent and smooth African brother from the Sudan who lived in the Brooklyn projects with his mom. But in this, the third Midnight novel, one moment of rage we asked for the photos at the end. Please, just a little respect. I'm not going to run out the door. In this case, one moment of rage threw Midnight into a very dark world that he was not accustomed to. And it wasn't until he found that his wrists were cuffed and his ankles were cuffed, and his ankles and wrists were chained together, and his wrists and ankles that were chained together were chained to the next man whose wrists and ankles were chained together, who was chained to the next man, who was chained to the next man, 11 men in the row. All African faces. He looks, it's the first time he ever considered the notion of brotherhood. He had so much intelligence and so much culture. He had the benefit of knowing who his father was and growing up with his father for the first 7 years of his life, all of the lessons that his father taught him. He knew who his grandfather was and grew up with his grandfather and his great-grandfather. And when he came to the United States of America, he felt bad for the young brothers who had never met their fathers, or who had briefly met their fathers, or who had been lied to about who was their father, or didn't know who their father was, or whose mother told them that their father wasn't shit, so stop asking questions about your father. And he never shared the lessons of his culture that could have helped those young men in the projects to do better, to live better, to be better. But it wasn't until he was cuffed that he thought about the notion of brotherhood. This book, more than anything, is about faith, is about manhood, is about brotherhood, is about all the things that are up in our face in the media in 2015, approaching 2016. He's plunged into a world of dirty cops that pretend to be clean, injustices that pretend to be justice, gangs, and now he is trying to use the intellect that he had to survive the situation that he finds himself in, where for once in his life he is not in control of his circumstance. So I invite you to enter into the world of a moment of silence, and I invite you to know that each of my books are standalone books, which means that you can read it and you will feel you got a complete story. You don't have to read them in the particular order that I published them, but if you choose to do so, then that's just fine too. This is a moment of silence, Midnight 3, and now I'll take your questions and conversation. I hope you feel comfortable. I hope you don't just sit there and stare at me like I'm in the zoo. And I'm here for a limited amount of time. This is not the community hood spot, so we ain't having the hoedown. I'm not doing the usual Sister Souljah thing. You know, the audiences that I met in Florida before I got to the festival know what I mean. We're at the festival. So we will act accordingly. But you can ask me anything about anything that I know, and if I don't know something, I will certainly be the first to tell you I do not know. Yes.
Hi.
Peace.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Don't be sorry.
Okay, so there's that video that was going around, if you're not going to go on social media, where you were having that interview and you said that you didn't just want people to be militant, you wanted them to also have equal parts intelligence, and that kind of shocked the interviewer. And it reminded me of Juno Diaz saying that to be a person from the ghetto and to be intelligent was kind of like being an X-Men. Like you were part freak, but also part hero. And when I think about that, and I think about Midnight, and I think about Winter, and how they grew up in these environments, but they did have that intelligence. And you think about Malcolm, and you think about yourself, do you agree that we kind of view them as X-Men in that equal part freak, equal part genius? And how do you feel about that if we do?
I think it sounds like you know. I've read some of his work, and it sounds like he tends to relate to that whole genre with X-Men and all of this. That is not something that I read. I understand what he means. I definitely don't think of myself as part freak or part superhero. And I also don't think of intelligence as something that is impossible for us to achieve. I think that intelligence is there for the taking if you're interested in it. For me, intelligence means only one thing, and that is the ability to solve problems. Some people think they're intelligent because they read the whole Shakespeare collection. That's not intelligence. You may be literate and you know about popular Western culture, but that's not the definition. If you want to show that you're intelligent, then take a problem, a serious problem, and put together the solution and put the solution into action. These are the people that I would consider intelligent. For me, as I watch the television, very rarely, but if I'm doing interviews, I'm in the newsroom and I see all of this crazy loose talk by the people who want to be leaders of the free world. To me, that's not intelligent. It's a very serious environment. It's a very serious climate. It's a very serious time. We need statesmanship. Statesmanship means that you have some global awareness and some intelligence that's towards the solution, which is peace and not war. Mothers all around the world, motherhood is a universal concept. Nobody wants to see their sons go to war, their daughters go to war. Nobody wants to see bombings and slaughters and shootings and chaos. I think if there were more mothers involved in the power process, we would have a better policy, internationally speaking. Just like a mother, if somebody had a problem with my son, I would want to know, who are you? What is it that you want? What is it that you're angry about? Let's see, can we find the solution? Because I don't want my sister's daughter or someone else's daughter sitting at a musical concert and get her head blown off because I was arrogant and not communicating properly and acting like I could hit and not get hit back and thinking that you could take all the losses and I would never take a loss. You see, this kind of leadership is not good statesmanship. What we need is more intelligence, and intelligence is the ability to solve problems. So no, I don't look at myself as part freak or part X-Men. I look at myself as woman who, when I was a young girl, grew up in the projects, everything that came along with that, free cheese, free peanut butter, welfare, food stamps, Section 8, long lines, poor medical care, misdiagnosis, all of that, miseducation, all of that. And just looked at the situation the same way Harriet Tubman looked at the situation when she was a young girl on the plantation. I was very clear that something was wrong. And my mother told me that she doesn't know what's wrong. And she wasn't a political woman, and she wasn't a revolutionary, and she wasn't part of any political organization or community organization. But the thing she said she could do for me is get me a New York Public Library card. And she told me, once you learn how to read, you can find out all the answers to all of your questions. Next. Yes. Peace. The first midnight? Yes. Okay, 2007? Yeah. Okay.
The thing is, only have 3 short questions. First of all, whatever happened to the movie, The Coldest Winter?
Okay.
Yeah, you know, yeah, I actually explained about The Coldest Winter.
Okay.
And the second question is, or do you want me to do question by question?
That would probably be better. Question by question would be better because I may forget your question by the time you get to the third one. So let me just say, short and sweet, The Coldest Winter Ever has been optioned. It was optioned last year, and it will be a major motion picture. It is, hold on, I'm not finished. It was optioned before in around 2001 by HBO, and it was to be executive produced by myself and Jada Pinkett. This business situation that I'm in now is not that situation. It was HBO, not Jada Pinkett, that opted out of that deal that we made that I discussed early on. And the new producer that came on to put the whole project together is somebody that I get along with really well, and she understands and gets it. And she also understands that creative people need space to create, and that people who sell a lot of books to a lot of people don't need to be micromanaged and maneuvered around. And so because her personality complements my personality, she has her own intelligence and sensibilities, and I have mine, and we're working together now on an independent film that will be somewhere around a $15 million budget, and that we're hoping to bring to the screen by the end of 2016 or the beginning of 2017. And that's the truth.
When are we gonna get another book to find out what happened to Winter? She's in jail. My God, the woman been in jail for how long?
Prison is a terrible thing, isn't it?
Suffering.
Everybody who has a loved one incarcerated gets that same burning feeling, like 25 years to life, 15 years to life, especially in our community, in the community of Africans and Latinos, where we get extremely long sentences for even small crimes. So yeah, it's a terrible, horrible, burning feeling. For those of you who read A Deeper Love Inside, the Portia Santiago story, she is the younger sister of Winter Santiago from The Coldest Winter Ever. If you haven't read that book, I recommend that you read that book. The book company calls that book the sequel to A Coldest Winter Ever. And I remember saying after I wrote the manuscript, well, I'm not sure if it's the sequel, and the editor said, it most certainly is. It comes after The Coldest Winter Ever. But whatever the case, Portia Santiago has a very powerful journey. She's the one who was locked up in juvenile detention, and you know, it's a very raw, rough ride. So it has that rawness of The Coldest Winter Ever, but she's just a sister who has her own personality, her own flaws, and her own mission. But Winter Santiago is in A Deeper Love Inside, for those of people who crave, you know, having that voice or seeing that image again. Next question.
The last one is, you messed up because you opened the door. Memoir, all autobiography, something. I need something so I can pass on
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Because where you come from, I deal with a lot of kids that's bitter and they see no way out. And there's no such thing as no way out. There's light in everything. And I need that to pass on to them. I don't mind buying you a book as long as it's something. I tell women, I will buy you a book. I don't even know you, don't have to know you. But if you're interested in reading, I will go in my pocket and I will buy you a book. And no, I'm not rich. But that's how much I believe in reading
Right.
and knowledge. So I need something about you or you know what?
My first book that I ever published with Random House is a memoir about me.
Okay.
The title is No Disrespect. Okay? Now, because I stand here today and I've been married for 23 years, I'm sure I need to write a new memoir. My husband says, oh, I should write a book, Doing 25 Years of Life with Sister Souljah. Thank you so much.
Good evening, sister. I'm very happy you came to Miami, Florida.
Peace.
Thank you for coming to our city. This is a kind of a two-part, kind of long-winded question.
Oh, okay.
And I apologize. But
No,
because
don't apologize. You didn't
it's
do
not
anything
very
wrong.
often I see knowledge and quality up front. I work in production in the music and nightclub business. I've been in it for about 25 years. My first party I ever threw was with Jungle Brothers and Leaders in the New School.
Come into my hut.
Yo,
Yeah.
So,
You know what's
it's
up.
frustrating, and yeah, I'm a little hypocritical.
So
I'm sporting a
raincoat.
great shirt, but like to quote Chris Rock, if the beat's all right, it's all right. You know, if the beat's right, it's all right. So there's a lot of days I work in the business, and I'm constantly like wanting to commit suicide because I'm listening to this crappy music, because these artists are awful. Period. There's no. And again, for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, please go home, Google Leaders in the New School, X-Clan, Gangstar, EPMD, Boogie Down Productions, MC Light. These were the Queen Latifah, Moni Love. Just in general, you don't see it anymore. It's been dead for quite probably since 1995, and I feel like hip hop in general died with Biggie and Tupac. And since then, you get little spurts of energy here and there, and luckily I'm in a position, out of all the years I've been working in the business, I can pick and choose my shows now. And sometimes I'll be like, yo, we need you to work like Nicki Minaj. Fuck that, and then the next show I can actually go work an EPMD show and get paid. And I saw Souljah X the other day.
She coming around to the question. You getting the look now. That's not me.
So I saw Brand New Beat 2 years ago on my birthday, and I was talking with Souljah X, and he brought you up, and it's all surreal right now to see you. One, in regards to the state of hip hop. Two, the discourse in politics, and that's another thing. I've been working in politics for that amount of time, doing community work, and unfortunately, it just seems like Black women or Black people or people of color in general in Hollywood are not getting a good portrayal. I'm sorry. For anybody that saw that movie, the main one,
Is the question how she feels about the state of hip hop right now?
the state of hip hop and the state of Hollywood portrayal of Black folk.
Okay. Whew. Thank you. I think of music as art. I think of art as only the things that move the soul. Whether you're looking at a painting, or whether you're looking at a film, or whether you're reading a book, or listening to music, if it doesn't move the soul, it's not art to me. So probably what you're feeling right now in this time period is there are a whole lot of people with our same complexion singing, but your soul is not moving. Men singing love songs and you just don't believe them. Women singing songs and you don't believe them either. So the feeling is what's moving, is what's missing from the music right now. At the time period that all of those great hip-hop artists existed, we were articulating our soul, our circumstances, our environment, everything that was going on, what we really thought and feel. But you cannot underestimate what kind of fear occurs when people see the people who are the best at their craft getting whipped, getting isolated, getting incarcerated, what it does is it makes people start to look at that industry as just a means of making money, but no longer as a means of moving the soul. And just to give you a context for that, if you look at somebody like Tupac Shakur, who was always facing some kind of trouble with the police, trouble wherever he went, gangs, just all kinds of trouble and drama. Look at people who have been criticized by presidential candidates and the vice president of the actual vice president of the United States, whether it was Ice-T or whether it was NWA or whether it was Public Enemy. Each artist that was moving the soul and moving the mind was targeted in some way. Some of them survived, some of them did not. So now, if you're a young person and you're watching this, I always like to go back to the metaphor of the plantation. You see, because on the slave plantation, for those who study history, the ones who cooperate are the ones who get nothing that's presented as something. But they don't get their feet chopped off or their tongues ripped out or their heads caged up. So when you are conscious and you are speaking the truth, rhyming the truth, saying the truth, singing the truth, writing the truth, filming the truth, you will always be under an intense heat and an intense pressure. So now what you have is young people who don't want to make that sacrifice, that don't have the strength to make that sacrifice. This generation is very interesting. I hear them saying all the time, you know, talking about their awkwardness or speaking in diminutive terms and just saying, oh, don't judge me and I don't know, and they just can't handle too much information. And oh my God, it's so stressful. I just want my Starbucks and my sushi. Oh, you know, I want to sleep. Where's my cell phone? Instagram me. Yeah. That's the generation that we're in. My own niece, she told me, she said, Auntie, texting is touching. And I said, no, you must not have been touched. It's not the same thing. So they also fear politics. They fear consciousness. They even fear love. They fear love. They fear all of the things that are natural. And so they're having virtual everything. Virtual everything. It's either virtual or it's just a complete fantasy. So even the young brothers no longer have to have the anxiety about liking a girl and stepping up to her and, you know, trying to spit his game and, you know, get his rap on and try to convince her to go out on a date with him. That anxiety is gone. He just texts her, you know, and says all kind of things that he wouldn't be able to say in her face because he wouldn't have the strength to say it in her face, but he can text her. And girls do the same thing, break up with cats on Facebook. It's done, we over, you stupid. I never liked it, you anyway. And a more serious note, even the technology has infiltrated even some of the criminal activity in our community where, you know, a lot of the teenagers are so simple-minded that they be like, I'ma fuck you up on Monday, you wait till after school, typing it. This is a confession. When you get to court, and you will get to court, your ass is gonna get locked up. Why are you Facebooking an illegal intention? And why are you, people who are lawyers and doctors, African-American psychiatrists and professionals and owners of business, why are you letting your 13-year-old daughter sit in her bathroom with her cell phone, taking pictures of herself, using the toilet, and then posting them up into the world of the internet, which is global? You used to have to really politic very hard to get your mother to allow you to get your own phone line in the house. It was something you couldn't get. You had to get straight A's, or you had to babysit the baby for like 6 months. You had to do something that earned you that telephone. But now, if you have a daughter, 40-year-old men can be talking to your 15-year-old daughter. Just tell her, yeah, just meet me on the corner. He's not going to come meet her mother, her father. He's not going to see any framework. So I think this is a very strange time, and it's reflected in the hip-hop music. And that's why when you listen to the songs, they're always saying strange things. And when I'm riding in the car with the young people in my family, I'm always like, what is he talking about? I understand the lyrics, and I know people say back in the day, people used to say the same thing about James Brown, from my mother's era. But I can hear the lyrics. I hear what he's saying. I'm just wondering, what are you talking about? I can't feel my face when I'm with you. What are you talking about? All kinds of strange stuff. So I, like you, probably only listen to the music from the 90s. And I have different sensibilities than this whole generation of even what a man is and what a man feels like and what a man walks like and what a man talks like. All of those things are different from me, from the generation that I find myself with. So check, I understand. Yes, ma'am.
Peace, Sister Souljah.
Peace.
It's an honor. I've read everything. No disrespect, and I just brought the new book last night.
Thank you.
Question. When did you know you had a gift, and what advice would you give to a new writer?
When did I know I had a gift? I was a student at Rutgers University. That's the university that I graduated from. One day, I lived in the towers on the Livingston campus, but I was a Rutgers college student. One day, I was walking into the lobby, and there were these students organizing something, and they want you to, they give you like the first sentence, and they want you to complete the story. So everybody that came in, they tried to get them to take this little storybook thing for some company or whatever. So I took the paper and I wrote a story, and the guy one of the students who had the storybook vending booth said, "Oh, wait a minute, this is really something. How did you think about that quick? Hey, everybody, listen to this." And then he started telling everybody about this little story that I conjured up right there in the lobby of the dormitory that I lived in as a student at Rutgers University. It was really the first time I thought of my writing as anything beyond my activism. I thought of my imagination instead of just the hardcore reality, which is what I normally speak about or normally write about. So I always remember the guy. I remember his name, even though he wasn't a friend or an acquaintance of mine, and how he rallied everybody around my little handwritten, impromptu, extemporaneous story or whatever. And I think that's when I thought to myself, maybe this is a gift that the Creator gave to me. And the second question?
What advice would you give to a new writer?
I say to all writers almost the same thing. In order to be a great writer, you have to live a rich life. Not rich in terms of money, rich in terms of the ability to get off of your block, out of your house, travel around. It doesn't even have to be another country. It could just be around the area. Listen to how people talk, different dialects. Watch how people stand, what people do. Have a curious mind that seeks answers. Do interviews with people. Something that makes you have a treasure chest of valuable information and characters. You cannot give a reader what you don't have to give. So people say all the time, well, what's your process, Sister Souljah? Well, and just tell me, what's your routine? I don't have a routine. I think if you're a writer and you have a routine, maybe your writing will become routine. If your writing is routine, then it's not moving the soul for the reader, because exactly how you feel about your writing is exactly how your reader will feel about your writing. So if you're not fascinated and exciting while you're writing it on the page, then your reader's not excited or fascinated. And I would close that answer out with saying, when I want to write about something that I do not know, I first go and find out so that I will be able to be accurate and authentic. When I wrote Midnight, A Gangsta Love Story, I had the Japanese character Akemi Nakamura. and I had her Japanese family, and I wrote Midnight a Gangster Love Story without having traveled to Japan. So it was just, the craft of out of my imagination. But I didn't go for repeating anything I saw any other writer do or any stereotypes that I had been fed, because I really hate stereotypes, and I don't like when people or writers are not open to other cultures and languages and their expression of themselves from their perspective as opposed to from the mainstream media perspective. But when I wrote Midnight 2, which is called Midnight and the Meaning of Love, I took my whole family. We all took Japanese language lessons, and that was amazing, and that was almost funny. And then we went to Japan. And in Japan, I didn't go as a tourist. I went and I lived there. And so for 3 years, off and on, I traveled all around Japan, China, and Korea. When it was time for me to write Midnight and the Meaning of Love, I was very confident at that point that I was giving you the most accurate, unflinching look at those societies, not just in terms of what the architecture looks like or what the tourist spots are, but the emotion of the people, the way the people carry themselves, the customs of the people, the foods that they eat, the music that they enjoy, the things that they do that are alien to me but normal for them, and vice versa. So I had a really incredible time in Japan, and it's a country that I miss a lot, as I don't live there and stay there or even visit there anymore. I can just tell you that I felt like I was on the inside of a Japanese person from all of the research that I did. So I think with writing, you should not be afraid to approach other people who you do not know, to be the first one to speak up, to have the confidence to say truthfully what you're doing. You'll be surprised how many people are willing to help you for no reason at all, but they just think it's wonderful that you care, or they think it's wonderful that you're interested. I remember one day I was sitting at the table with a Japanese lady. She was about 29 years old, and my family was with me, and we were all just having casual conversation, and she said, you know, Sister Souljah, this is my dream. I said, what is your dream? She said, to do what you just did. I said, what did I do? She said, you laugh, and then you throw your shoulders back. And then your smile is like this, and your shoulders shake. She said, I want to do that. And I thought, wow, these are things that I certainly never thought about. When I'm laughing, I'm just like, oh, but for them, a culture who a lot of it happens on the inside. A lot of their mind is hidden, just not shared with other people. This was something great for her. So this statement that she made towards me taught me something. And me just being there for her taught her something about culture. So all of the stereotypes just fly out of the window. She says, hey, I met an African American. It's a lady. She's married. She has a husband. She has children. It's a family. Oh, my God. And they're living here in Japan. So it was great. So that's my recommendation to you if you're a writer. Go all out in observation mode, in confidence and communication mode, and keep notes all the time of your observances. And then you'll be a rich writer who writes about rich things. Thank you.
So, we are running out of time, so the questions are going to be rapid fire and the answers are going to be rapid fire, all right?
Okay.
All right, go. I have a question for you because I really wanted to know because, I am a part of this generation, and all that good stuff. So I wanted to ask you because we had people like the Black Panther Party, we had people like NWA that's going to sit up here and stand up for what's going on in the police brutality and all that good stuff. So do you feel like that we have that in this generation, or do you think that that's what's missing in order to have our African American, I guess that's the way to say, to say that someone to stand up for us, like, Dr. Martin Luther King, yeah, I'm so sorry.
W.E.B. Du Bois. Right.
Yes. We had MC Light, you said my girl name. So we had all that good people. So do you think that this generation is missing that? And what do you think about what's going on as far as like this police brutality and all this racism, crazy mess? Like, I'm sorry, but I kind of have to.
Stop apologizing. You don't have to say I'm sorry for everything.
Kind of rush, so you don't understand my question. I can say over.
I certainly understand. I was waiting for you to finish. That's courteous. Um, I feel the entire African community is suffering. We are suffering from the same thing, and that is that we have fallen out of love with one another. The love is the glue that creates the unity, that creates the understanding, that even fuels the fight for justice. If you don't have love, you will never be victorious. If you don't have faith, you will be swallowed by your fears. So faith and love, like Marcus Garvey, one God, one aim, one destiny. These are the things. I often say that Dr. Martin Luther King was successful because he was organizing men, women, and children. Right now, if you step into a leadership position, you are organizing people who call themselves niggas, bitches, and bastards. Totally different. Thank you. Yes.
This is from Miss Jordan, because it's not so much a question as it is a comment of thank you for your longevity in all that you have written, all that you have said. I remember when I first saw you on TV, I believe it was The Magnificent Joe Noble.
Oh,
And yes,
long time.
yes, and I have followed you. Follow as far as I can, but I'm just so glad to be able to stand there and just tell you thank you for your wisdom,
Thank
your
you.
intellect, your experiences, and also how your mother raised you. God bless her, because I was able to go and tell other students and their parents, well, you know, you don't have to have money to do anything. I said, find a newspaper and go with something free. Get a library card. All of that stuff that
That's
you
right.
said, point out about your mother, I took to other parents. And I'm also happy to say that I'm just retired, but a lot of teachers in my school also took excerpts from your books to teach our children.
Great.
So I
Great.
just wanted to just say thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your acknowledgement.
Good afternoon. First of all,
Peace.
thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. I genuinely appreciate it. She just did that. That's okay. I'm another person. My name is John Harris III. I'm the founder of an organization called Authentic Reflection. Oftentimes, I'm silenced by my own people, so I just wanted to say something really quickly. As an artist and I'm young. I'm 25, so a lot of times I find myself being the voice of a lot of people who voices aren't respected by the leaders of the generation above us. So I wanted to know, as an artist who has already been targeted by political powers and things of that sort, and silenced by my own people, oftentimes, who have allegiance to mainstream media and things of that sort, how would you suggest that I stay true to my truth and my art, but at the same time, stay alive?
Stay alive. Staying alive, staying alive. Okay, let me just say this. When I was even a little younger than you, a minister said this to me once when I had a similar kind of question. Don't think that it's going to be automatic for the elders of your own kind to respect you. You have to build something. You have to become a responsible person. Anyone can talk and agitate and instigate, but you have to build something tangible. Because we come from an oral tradition, we have literally hundreds of thousands of great speakers, great rhymers, great storytellers, because this is the tradition that our culture comes out of. What distinguishes one person from another person? You know, sometimes other activists get mad and say, oh, Sister Souljah's hogging the spotlight. I never chase the spotlight. What I try to do is just do everything that I do well, share everything that I have well, and build something that has some longevity to it. So after I received this information from this particular minister was when I started working with homeless children, and I created an institution for those children and those families. Once I had to build something is really when the learning began. Once I had to go door to door in dark areas where all kinds of things were going on, see things that I never saw before, not even in the project building where I was raised. That's when I started to become respected. After a number of years, when people would see me, they say, oh, there's the girl with the kids. And I hadn't given birth to any children at that point, but I had collected up all of the children in the community that were part of the homeless families and taken them and taught them and taken them on trips into summer camps and college prep programs and Big Sister that and that. Then the businesses in the neighborhood began to not only respect me, but support the work that I'm doing. So I think the best thing I can tell you is that your work is evidence of your truth. A lot of times for young people, we have a lot of high notions about what our truth is. But you're only really going to know your truth after you do some work that is outside of your circumference. Meaning not work for you to just get your thing together or get the beat right, not work to get your hair styled the right way or your kicks looking the right way or your pants hanging the right way, but real work. That here's a child who lost their parents, help them to decide that life is better than suicide. Help them to understand that there are some resources and some concerned people, and there is some love in your community. Create a safe space for them to think and read and converse without violence and conflict resolution and things like that. Once you do that, I don't think you will be silenced by the elders. In the absence of that, I think the elders will just look at you as somebody else who's talking. And like I said, in our community, everybody's talking because we come from an oral tradition. Yeah, sure.
Good evening.
Peace.
Peace. I raised my brother. One of the first books I gave him was No Disrespect.
Mm.
He was 16 and he read it twice. So thank you for writing something that he could relate to. I'm a criminal defense attorney, but I'm writing my first book. I'm a litigation attorney, but my first book about love from a man's perspective as told by a woman. So my question is, because you have a militant background, but your books are so beautifully written about love and these type of loving experiences, I'm having an issue going back and forth between these emotions of criminal court and love. And how do and then I get frustrated and I can't write. Clarity. So my question to you would be, how do you balance those things when you're writing, when there's so many things going on in your head about political issues? And I'm excited to read what happens to Midnight in this next book because I've read all of your books and I'm a criminal defense attorney, but dealing with that and then trying to transition my mind into write about love at night when I get home has been a very big challenge for me.
It's hard, right? You know why? You know why it's hard? It's hard because the issue of love is obviously an issue for you.
Yes.
All right? So and I don't mean any disrespect whatsoever.
I don't take it that way.
So in order to write love, you have to know love. In order to write love, you have to feel love. Now, let's step out of your shoes and leave your body sitting there and then look at yourself with your body standing there, right? You're all day in a system which is the antithesis of love. Here is a man and a woman who somehow had sex and created a child who hate each other. The only way they can communicate with one another is by going to the family court and getting the judge. Now, here's a judge who doesn't live in the same neighborhood, doesn't have the same background, doesn't know anything what's going on in this household, that's going to make a judgment, is going to say things to the woman that she's going to listen to because the judge say it. But she doesn't listen to the man, and he doesn't listen to her. And the man's going to react because the judge said so. So you're in an environment, especially the criminal justice system, that is eviscerating that loving feeling because it's personifying that confusion. And that's the reason why at the end of the day, you're completely too tense to think about love, and you're probably scared to death of loving anyone, that it might end up in the court system, with a knife in your back or a bullet in your head or a restraining order on your man and running away with children that belonged to somebody who you had sex with, but he was a stranger. So this is the challenge that you have. And I would say the only solution would be that you have to unravel the tightness in your soul. You have to unravel that, because until you set that free, you're not going to be able to write love in a way that your reader feels it and your reader believes you. The reader has to believe you. And lastly, for that question, I'll tell you this. When I write in a male voice, from a male perspective, or about male characters, I have a genuine love for men. Don't take it wrong. It's not scandal. It's a wholesome love, because in my lifetime, I have known a lot of good, decent, great men of various faiths, of various professions, from low status to high status. And at the time that I entered literature, I saw a lot of anger surrounding all of the black male characters and not too much love. And so one of the things I wanted to do was convey that love and admiration that I have in my soul through my characters. And I think you'll be able to do it after you, I don't know, do some yoga or something like that. Thank you.
No disrespect.
You got one last person.
No disrespect, but
Okay.
there's a line outside. We have to respect that there's another event happening. I'm a
Oh, are they coming in here?
answer her question while we are all in the book line and we can all listen to the answer. Can we do that?
Okay, yes.
So you get the special question. We also have to be very orderly in going out. Fire hazard. So this
Where is
way
the
in
signing?
line, let's go get our books.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Does
you.
the audience know? Okay.
Okay, security, well, thank you. Please put your hands together. For
Thank you.
We'll try and answer her question outside. I'll bring her.
Okay. I guess you can come in. From Rutgers. Donna Mason. Oh, I don't remember. Glenn Arnold, of course. Tanya Roth, that's Jeff Brooks, yes. See, I remember all the men, right? He smacked me. Alan Mitchell, yes. Really? Yeah, real beautiful brother. That's why you remember. Oh, good for you. Nice to see you. Thank you for reminding me. You just took me back down memory lane. No, I'm okay. I'm good.
Okay, I'll walk with you too.
All right.
I don't know if this is yours too. Watch your step down here.
Okay. Let's see.